Welcome back to the deep dive. Now, this look into the future of digital banking for credit unions is brought to you by Access Softtech. They're the premier provider of digital banking solutions.
Yeah, and we're going to unpack some thinking we've been doing recently on just how fast this whole landscape is changing.
It really is. It feels like a topic that's seen just, well, dramatic shifts over the last decade or so.
Absolutely. If you think back maybe 10, 15 years ago, digital banking for a credit union probably meant, servers humming away in a back room somewhere.
Right. That old on-premises setup.
Yeah.
The credit union itself housed and maintained all the hardware, the software, everything.
Mm.
But the huge, huge shift we've seen is the move off-prem into the cloud for these really critical digital platforms.
Exactly. And it's not just like a minor trend. It's really become the standard now, and for some very good reasons. Moving to the cloud brings fundamental advantages.
Like security, for instance.
Security is a big one. Cloud providers, they specialize in defending against threats at a massive scale, in ways individual institutions often just can't match.
Makes sense.
And it's usually way more efficient to manage, too. It frees up valuable internal IT folks. And then long term, well, it's often significantly more cost effective than that constant cycle of buying new hardware, maintaining it.
Yeah, the upgrade cycle.
Right.
And what's interesting is how we see this cloud trend as maybe a sort of microcosm for something bigger happening across the institution.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. The same drivers needing that specialized security know-how, better operational efficiency, smarter cost management, they don't just apply to digital banking.
No, they really apply across so many other tech services a credit union needs today.
Precisely. It points to this broader evolution in, well, the whole institution's technology strategy. And now, as digital banking itself has matured, the capabilities have just exploded.
We're way beyond just basic online banking now, aren't we?
Oh, definitely. We're talking sophisticated stuff, hyper-personalized experiences, seamless API integrations with dozens of different fintech partners, advanced analytics, you name it.
And all that added sophistication, well, it inevitably brings significant complexity, particularly kind of under the hood, right?
It absolutely does. And here's where it gets really interesting based on what we've been seeing. That growing complexity. It demands a level of really deep specialized knowledge to actually unlock the platform's full potential.
Okay.
But the reality for, I'd say, most credit unions is that they simply can't dedicate enough internal people, enough resources to build and maintain that kind of deep platform-specific expertise, not alongside everything else they have to do.
So, right, you've made this big investment in an incredibly powerful, sophisticated tool. But your internal team is probably juggling, what, a dozen other critical other priorities,
Exactly.
which makes it incredibly difficult for them to become the deep expert you really need for this specific platform.
That really paints the picture of let's call it the common model today, right?
No.
A vendor builds the product, sells it, helps install it, maybe does some initial training, offers support.
Mm-hmm.
But then the actual day-to-day operational heavy lifting, the optimization, the really deep configuration stuff, that often lands squarely back on the credit union's internal staff.
Okay, but doesn't that sort of approach mean you might not be, fully using everything the platform can actually do? You're leaving value on the table.
That's exactly the challenge we see emerging. Now, contrast that with a managed services model.
Okay.
Here, the vendor who actually built the platform, they leverage their own inherent deep expertise, not just to set it up, but they partner with the credit union to actively run and manage the platform day to day on their behalf.
So what difference does that make, practically speaking? How does that operational model change things on the ground?
Well, looking at how clients use services under these different models, the results are pretty compelling. We see that managed services typically lead to much better utilization of the product's full capabilities.
Meaning they're actually using all the features.
Yeah, using the features that can really benefit members. And it also tends to be more cost-effective overall because you're not stretching those limited internal resources so thin, trying to make them experts in everything.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, it usually means more robust, higher-performing services are consistently there for the members.
So it's not just about freeing up staff time, though that's part of it. It's also about ensuring the technology actually performs at its peak potential.
Precisely. Our analysis really validates this. While credit union staff are, incredibly capable people, they are very frequently pulled in just too many directions.
Yeah.
It makes it nearly impossible to dedicate the focused time and get the specialized knowledge needed to truly maximize these sophisticated digital platforms by themselves.
So the view here is that this resource crunch, this reality, really makes managed services a key trend to watch.
Absolutely. Based on the data and just the undeniable need for deep expertise in these increasingly complex systems, managed services isn't just some buzzword for credit unions. It's likely to be a defining operational trend for the next 10 years, maybe more, in digital banking.
Okay, let's try and wrap this up then. The core argument we've distilled here is pretty powerful. Digital banking platforms are getting so sophisticated
Yeah.
that they demand a level of specialized expertise that most credit unions, frankly, struggle to maintain internally alongside all their other critical tasks.
Yeah, and we've sort of explored how that common model vendor builds, CU manages, often leaves potential untapped, compared to a managed services partnership, where the vendor actually takes on the day-to-day running and optimizing.
And the data we've seen on client utilization seems to back this up pretty clearly. It shows the managed services approach often leads to, well, better use of features, better cost dynamics.
And ultimately a better digital experience for the members.
Right. It highlights that internal staff are just stretched too thin for this kind of critical, complex function,
It really feels like a necessity now, driven by the sheer pace of tech change and the depth of expertise you need just to keep up.
which really leaves you, the listener, with this provocative thought stemming from this analysis.
Mm.
Given how fast digital technology is evolving and the depth of specialized expertise required to manage these platforms effectively, how does your organization plan to ensure you're truly maximizing the potential of your critical technology platforms moving forward?